My sister got pregnant in secret. Now my parents accuse me of being the father. I'm a 27-year-old man, and until recently, I thought my family was complicated but manageable. My parents always had this controlling streak. My sister Claire always kept secrets, and I always felt like the middleman who had to keep the peace. But what's happening now? It's something I never imagined I'd be living through. It started when Claire, who's 24, began acting strange. She was more withdrawn than usual, avoiding family dinners, skipping calls, and spending more time locked away in her room when she did visit. At first, I thought it was just her being her. She's always been private, always holding her cards close to her chest. But then, about 6 months ago, I noticed something. She was wearing baggier clothes than usual, and her face looked fuller. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she just put on some weight, but in the back of my mind, I knew something was off. I remember one night vividly. I came home late after work and found her sitting on the couch, her hands resting unconsciously on her stomach. The way she pulled her hoodie down when she saw me, the quick defensive look, my gut twisted. I asked if she was okay, and she snapped, "I'm fine. Just leave me alone." It wasn't until weeks later that the truth exploded. My parents called a family meeting, which already set the tone for disaster. We were all sitting in the living room when my mom, her voice trembling but sharp, blurted out, "Claire is pregnant." I remember freezing in place. My father's face turned pale, my mom's lips pressed together, and Claire just sat there, her eyes wet, refusing to look at anyone. It felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. Before I could even process it, my father turned his gaze on me. His voice was cold, cutting. "Is it yours?" I thought I misheard him. My heart stopped, my stomach flipped, and I just stared at him in disbelief. "What the hell are you talking about?" I snapped back. But he didn't blink. He just repeated it, slower this time, like a knife twisting. "Is the baby yours?" My mom didn't even defend me. She sat there, arms crossed, her eyes darting between me and Claire, as if she believed it was possible. And Claire stayed silent. That silence was worse than anything, because in my parents' eyes, silence meant guilt. In that single moment, my whole world shifted. They weren't shocked at the pregnancy. They were ready to believe the most disgusting, twisted thing about me without hesitation. And my sister, the one who could have shut it down instantly, didn't say a word. That night was the beginning of my nightmare. The hours after that family meeting felt like stepping into some warped nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My father didn't even wait for me to defend myself. He kept pressing, his jaw clenched, his voice a low growl. "Tell us the truth, son. Don't make this worse than it already is." I remember staring at him, my whole body shaking with disbelief. The truth. The truth is I have no idea who got her pregnant, but it sure as hell isn't me. But the damage was done. Once that suspicion was spoken out loud, it was like poison spreading through the air. My mom wouldn't look me in the eye. My dad stormed out of the living room like he couldn't bear to be near me. And Claire just sat there, staring at the floor, her lips trembling but refusing to speak. That silence, it was deafening. I wanted to scream at her, to beg her to open her mouth and tell them the truth. Just a simple, "No, it's not him." That would have been enough to stop the bleeding. But she didn't. And by the time I walked out of that house, my reputation within my own family had been gutted. The days that followed were hell. My mom started calling less and less. When she did, her tone was cold, clipped. My dad sent me a single text that burned itself into my brain. "If you've done something unforgivable, you need to own up before this family is destroyed for good." And the worst part, Claire still wasn't talking. She had vanished into her bubble, avoiding me, avoiding everyone. She moved out of my parents' house and into some apartment no one knew the address of. When I tried to reach her, she ignored my calls, my texts, everything. The rumor started soon after. It's a small town, and word travels fast when a girl gets pregnant without naming the father. My parents didn't outright accuse me to outsiders, but they didn't defend me either. Their silence fed the fire. Suddenly, people I grew up with were giving me side eyes in the grocery store. Whispers followed me whenever I walked into a cafe. I'll never forget the first time someone actually said it to my face. It was an old neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, who stopped me in the parking lot of the local store. Her voice was low, like she was sharing a dirty secret. "Honey, I hope this isn't true. Your poor sister and your parents, what they must be going through." I snapped. "It's not true. I would never, ever, do something like that." My voice cracked in the middle, and instead of believing me, she gave me that pitying look people give when they think you're lying. That's when I realized how deep I was buried. It wasn't just a family issue anymore. It was a stain on my entire life. I started avoiding places I used to go, just to dodge the whispers. Friends I'd known since childhood stopped texting me back. At work, even though no one said it outright, I could feel the shift. People were polite, but distant. My boss called me into his office one morning and said, "Look, I don't care what happens in your personal life, but if this becomes a distraction, we'll have to reconsider your position here." I left that meeting shaking, not just with anger, but with the crushing weight of powerlessness. My own family had planted this seed, and now it was growing into something I couldn't control. And the entire time, Claire stayed silent. I went to my parents again, desperate, trying to reason with them. "Do you seriously believe this? Do you really think I'm capable of something like that?" My dad just looked at me with tired eyes and said, "We don't know what to believe. Not when she won't tell us anything." That hit harder than if he had screamed at me. The idea that my own father, the man who raised me, taught me right from wrong, who always said family was the only thing that mattered, was now lumping me into the category of possible abuser. It broke something in me. Every night, I lay in bed replaying that family meeting, imagining different outcomes. What if Claire had just spoken up? What if my dad had trusted me? What if my mom had stood by me instead of crossing her arms in silence? But those what-ifs didn't change the reality. My life was being destroyed by an accusation I couldn't even properly defend against. Because it wasn't spoken in public, it was just whispered, insinuated, left to rot and spread. The pressure built until I finally snapped. I tracked Claire down. It took weeks, calling friends, scrolling through social media, piecing together tiny clues until I found her new apartment. I showed up at her door, my hands trembling with rage and desperation. When she finally opened the door, she looked tired. Her belly was unmistakably showing by then, and her eyes were swollen from crying. For a moment, all my anger crumbled, and I just blurted out, "Why, Claire, why won't you just tell them it's not me?" She looked at me, her lip trembling, and whispered, "Because if I tell them the truth, it'll destroy everything." And then she slammed the door in my face. That was the moment I realized whatever secret she was hiding was bigger, darker, and more dangerous than anything I'd imagined. The sound of that door slamming in my face still echoes in my head. I stood there for several minutes, fists clenched, heart racing, staring at the cheap paint peeling off her door. My own sister, the one who could have ended this nightmare with one sentence, had just admitted she was hiding something bigger, and instead of protecting me, she chose silence. I left her building that night feeling like a ghost. The cold night air bit at my skin, but inside, I was boiling. Every step back to my car was heavier than the last. I couldn't stop replaying her words, "If I tell them the truth, it'll destroy everything." What truth could possibly be worse than letting your own brother be accused of something vile? I didn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't let me. Instead, I started making lists. Who was Claire seeing? Who had she been spending time with before she pulled away from everyone? I scrolled through her social media accounts, most of which had been abandoned or locked down. No recent photos, no tagged friends, nothing. It was like she'd scrubbed herself clean from the internet. But then I remembered, about a year ago, Claire had started hanging out with this guy named Marcus. He was older, maybe in his late 30s, divorced, with a reputation around town for being trouble. I never liked him. He had this smug, predatory aura, the kind of man who lingered too long in conversations with younger women. But Claire insisted he was just a friend. I tried calling Marcus, but his number was disconnected. When I drove by his place, the windows were dark, the mailbox overflowing. He was gone, vanished. The more I dug, the darker things got. A friend of Claire's let something slip over drinks. Apparently, Marcus had a temper. Once, he'd been kicked out of a bar for shoving Claire during an argument. Another time, she showed up with a bruise on her arm, brushing it off as an accident. The pit in my stomach grew. Was Marcus the father? Was that why Claire was hiding it? But then a new thought hit me like a freight train. If Marcus was the father, why wouldn't she just say that? Why would she rather let the world think something disgusting about me than point the finger at him? Unless Marcus wasn't the whole story. Unless there was someone else. The paranoia consumed me. Every man in Claire's orbit became a suspect in my mind. Old classmates, co-workers, even distant cousins. I hated myself for even letting those thoughts creep in, but the silence, the way she chose to leave me out to dry, pushed me into darker places. Meanwhile, my parents' behavior got worse. My dad stopped answering my calls altogether. My mom would pick up once in a while, but every conversation turned into some veiled interrogation. "Are you sure you're telling us everything? Why won't Claire defend you? Why are you so defensive if you have nothing to hide?" It was like I was screaming into a void. Then came the breaking point. One evening, I got home from work and found an envelope slipped under my apartment door. Inside was a single piece of paper, with just a sentence typed out in bold letters. "Stop digging or the truth will ruin you." My hands shook as I read it over and over. Someone knew I was searching. Someone wanted me silent. I didn't know who sent it. Claire. Marcus. someone else entirely. But the message was clear. Whatever was being hidden wasn't just shameful, it was dangerous. That night, I drove to my parents' house, desperate to finally clear my name. When I walked in, my dad barely looked up from the TV. My mom crossed her arms, already bracing for another fight. "I need you to listen to me," I said, voice cracking. "I didn't do this. I don't know why Claire won't talk, but I swear on my life, that baby isn't mine. Someone is playing with us, and if you keep treating me like the enemy, you're going to regret it." My dad stood up slowly, towering over me, his face red with restrained anger. "Then who, son? Who's the father? Because until she says it, we're left with only one conclusion. And the longer she keeps her mouth shut, the worse it looks for you." I wanted to punch a hole through the wall. Instead, I stormed out, slamming their front door behind me. Back in my car, I broke down, full on sobbing, fist pounding the steering wheel, the kind of cry that leaves you empty afterward. I realized then that my parents weren't going to save me. Claire wasn't going to save me. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to tear it out of the shadows myself, no matter what it cost. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find Marcus, no matter where he'd gone. If he was the father, he was going to answer for why he'd vanished. And if he wasn't, then maybe chasing him would lead me to the real truth. I didn't know then just how much uglier this was going to get. I didn't waste another second. The morning after that breakdown in my car, I called in sick to work, filled a backpack with essentials, and started tracking Marcus down. If he was the missing piece of this nightmare, I had to find him. The first step was obvious, his last known address. I drove out to the small apartment complex, where he used to live. The building looked abandoned, the paint peeling off, trash piling in corners. When I knocked on the door, no answer. I peered through the blinds and saw emptiness, bare floors, no furniture, nothing. But his neighbor, a frail old man watering dead plants in his doorway, shuffled over. "You looking for Marcus?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual even though my pulse was racing. The old man smirked. "He took off a couple months ago. Packed up fast. Middle of the night. Some shouting before he left. Cops showed up once, or twice, but nothing came of it." "You a friend of his?" "Not exactly," I muttered. The man shrugged. "Well, he's bad news. If you're smart, you'll leave him alone." But I couldn't. I spent the next week tracing every lead I could find. Old bars he used to frequent, people who owed him money, even sketchy Facebook groups, where he still popped up sometimes. Each step pulled me deeper into a version of his world I didn't want to see. Gambling debts, fights, whispers of drugs. Then, one night, I finally got a break. A bartender recognized him from a photo I carried around. "Yeah, he's been in here. Comes with some young girl sometimes. Not lately, though. Think they had a falling out." The description of the girl chilled me. Blonde, early 20s, shy, always looking over her shoulder. That sounded a lot like Claire. My stomach sank. Was Marcus not just the father, but someone who had manipulated my sister into silence? Was she protecting him out of fear? I drove home in a fog, but when I got to my apartment, there was another envelope waiting under my door. Same white paper, same bold font, only this time it read, "You don't know what you're getting into. Stop before it's too late." My hands trembled. Someone was watching me. I sat down, staring at the note for what felt like hours. I thought about taking it to the police, but what could I say? That my sister was pregnant, and I was being blackmailed into silence. They'd laugh me out of the station, or worse, take my parents' side. Instead, I called Claire again. She didn't pick up. I called 3 more times before she finally answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stop calling me," she said. "I found Marcus," I blurted. "Or at least, I know you were with him. Why are you letting everyone think I'm the father when you know damn well I'm not?" There was silence on the other end. Then, softly, she said something I'll never forget, because if they knew who it really was, they'd never forgive me. The line went dead. I sat there, phone clutched to my ear, my brain spinning. It wasn't Marcus. At least, not just Marcus. There was someone else. Someone Claire was willing to ruin me to protect. The paranoia became unbearable. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped answering my boss calls. My whole life narrowed to one obsession, and covering the truth before the lies crushed me completely. One night, I drove back to Claire's place, and waited in my car, watching. Around midnight, a figure emerged from her building. Not Marcus. Someone older, stockier. My eyes widened when the streetlight hit his face. It was my father. I froze. My dad, who had spent weeks glaring at me with disgust, sneaking out of Claire's apartment in the dead of night. My stomach turned as bile rose in my throat. Could it be possible? Could he be the one she was protecting? I didn't want to believe it, but the way Claire had said, they'd never forgive me, made horrible sense. If she revealed that her own father was the one responsible, the family would implode. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I wanted to storm out, confront him right there in the street, but fear glued me in place. What if I was wrong? What if he saw me and twisted the story even further? Instead, I followed him at a distance. He drove back to my parents' house, parked like nothing had happened, and went inside. I sat there in my car, heart pounding, knowing my world had just shattered again. If my suspicions were right, the truth was far darker than I'd ever imagined. And if I said anything, it would destroy the family forever. But if I stayed silent, I was going to carry this false accusation forever, branded with something I hadn't done. That night, staring through my windshield at the quiet house, where my parents slept, I realized I was at a crossroads: expose the ugliest truth imaginable or let myself be destroyed by a lie. The image of my father leaving Claire's apartment haunted me. It wasn't just the sight, it was the casual way he did it. Like it was routine. Like it wasn't the first time. My father, the same man who raised us with strict lectures about morality, who humiliated me every chance he got once this rumor spread, was sneaking out of my sister's place, in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. Him stepping out of her building, adjusting his coat, looking around like he was making sure no one had seen him. The man I grew up fearing and respecting was suddenly the man I couldn't look at without wanting to vomit. But I had no proof, just one observation in the dark, and the stakes were too high to confront him blindly. So I started investigating. The next morning, while pretending to visit my parents, I quietly slipped into my dad's office. He was always paranoid, locking things away, but this time he'd been careless. In the bottom drawer, under stacks of old bills, I found a folded receipt from a pharmacy downtown. Prenatal vitamins, purchased 2 months ago. The name on the prescription, Claire. I almost dropped it. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the desk to steady myself. Why the hell was my dad buying prenatal vitamins for my sister? Before I could pocket the paper, I heard footsteps. I shoved everything back, forced my breathing to steady. My mom opened the door. Looking for something, she asked, eyes narrowing. I plastered on a smile. Just old photo albums. I thought Dad kept them in here. She didn't look convinced, but she shrugged. You're wasting your time on nonsense, when you should be apologizing to your sister. I bit back the urge to scream. Apologize? For what? For the child I didn't father. For the lies being forced down my throat. Later that night, I called Claire again. This time she picked up on the second ring, but her voice was sharper, desperate. Stop digging, she hissed. You don't know what you're playing with. I swallowed hard. Claire, I saw Dad leaving your place, and I found the receipt. You can't keep this buried forever. There was silence, then a choked sob. She whispered so softly I almost missed it. If you tell anyone, we're both dead. The line cut off. Her words echoed in my head like a curse. Dead. Who was she afraid of? My father, or someone else entirely? For the first time, I thought about all the ways Dad controlled our lives. How he decided everything. What school we went to, who we could date, even what jobs were acceptable. His temper wasn't just anger, it was domination. I remembered being 15, standing in the kitchen, when he broke a plate against the wall because I'd come home late. The way Mom just quietly swept the shards without saying a word. The way Claire avoided eye contact, shrinking into herself. Back then, I thought it was just strict parenting. Now I saw it differently. He had been conditioning us to fear him, to obey him, to never challenge his authority. And Claire, she was still trapped in that cage. I knew I had to push harder, so I started shadowing him, following him discreetly, watching his routines. He wasn't careful anymore. He didn't think anyone would dare question him. Twice I caught him slipping into Claire's building late at night. Once he stayed for an hour. Another time, almost until morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront him. One Sunday, after dinner, I asked him to step outside with me. He gave me that cold, suspicious look but followed. We stood in the yard, the streetlights humming above us. I know, I said, my voice trembling but firm. I know you've been seeing Claire. I saw you leaving her apartment. I found the vitamins, and I know the baby isn't mine. For a second, he didn't react. Then he smirked. A cruel, twisted smirk I'd never seen on his face before. You don't know a damn thing, he said slowly, almost savoring the words. And if you're smart, you'll keep it that way. My blood ran cold. Why? So I can be the family scapegoat while you... He cut me off, stepping closer, his eyes dark. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, you won't just lose your family, you'll lose everything. Your job, your friends, your life as you know it. His voice was calm, almost casual, but the threat behind it was sharp enough to cut my throat. I felt like a child again, standing in the shadow of a man who ruled my world through fear. But now I wasn't a child. I met his stare and said, You can't hide the truth forever. He leaned in, so close I could smell the alcohol on his breath. Watch me. Then he walked back inside like nothing had happened, leaving me frozen under the streetlight, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the night. That was the moment I realized my father was capable of anything, and if I didn't act, he would bury me and Claire with his secrets. I couldn't sleep after that night. Every sound in the house felt like a threat. Every glance from my father felt like a warning. His smirk haunted me, that cruel, confident smile that told me he wasn't afraid of me. He thought he was untouchable. Maybe he was. But I couldn't let it go. If I stayed quiet, I'd be the one branded for life as my sister's secret lover, the perverted son who betrayed his own blood. And worse, Claire would keep living under his shadow, terrified, broken, raising a child in that same prison of fear. I started documenting everything. Times he left the house, how long he stayed at Claire's, anything I could track. I wrote it all down in a notebook I kept hidden under my mattress. I felt like a detective in my own family, but the deeper I dug, the darker it got. One night, I decided to confront Claire directly, face to face. I drove to her apartment, my heart pounding the whole way. When she opened the door, she looked pale, exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying. "Why are you here?" she whispered harshly, glancing over her shoulder like someone might be watching. "I need answers," I said, pushing inside before she could stop me. "Claire, is Dad the father of your baby?" Her lips trembled, but she shook her head violently. "Don't say that. Don't even think that." "Then why does he come here at night? Why does he buy your vitamins? Why are you so terrified of him?" She sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. For a long time, she didn't say anything, just sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. Then, finally, she whispered, "You don't know what he's capable of." "I do," I said firmly, "and I need to know the truth. If I don't, he'll destroy me and you. Tell me." She lifted her head, her eyes red, and finally, the dam broke. "It started when I was 16, she said, her voice trembling. He told me it was my duty to keep the family together. That Mom couldn't satisfy him anymore. I thought it was normal at first. I thought maybe this is what daughters are supposed to do. He brainwashed me, made me feel guilty, made me think I owed him everything. I tried to stop it when I turned 18, but he threatened to ruin me, to make everyone think I was sick. Disgusting. So I kept quiet. And now," she broke down again, clutching her stomach. "Now I'm carrying his child." The air left my lungs. I felt like I'd been punched. My knees went weak, and I had to sit down. All those years, all the times I thought Claire was just moody, just distant. She wasn't distant, she was trapped. My own father had been abusing my sister, and the child she carried wasn't just a scandal, it was the living proof of a crime that could destroy our entire family. "Claire," I whispered, my voice shaking, "we have to go to the police. We can't let him keep doing this to you." Her eyes widened in terror. "No, if you tell anyone, he'll kill us both. You don't understand. He has people. He has influence. Everyone respects him. Who would believe me? Who would believe you, when everyone already thinks you're the father?" The weight of her words crushed me. She was right. To the outside world, my father was a respected man, a successful businessman, a strict but loving father. And me, I was already branded the outcast, the suspected sinner. But I couldn't just let it slide. That night, I made a decision. If the world wouldn't believe me, I would gather proof. Hard evidence. Something undeniable. The next time Dad visited her apartment, I was ready. I parked my car down the street, camera in hand. I waited in the shadows until I saw him walk inside. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the camera steady, but I managed to snap a few photos. When he finally left, I followed him, documenting every step, every turn. He didn't notice me, too confident in his untouchable status. Back home, I looked at the photos. My father entering and leaving my sister's building at midnight, the receipt in his desk, the phone records I'd secretly copied, all pieces of a puzzle too horrifying to ignore. But proof wasn't enough. I needed a confession. And that's when the idea hit me. I would record him. The next evening, I approached him casually, pretending to want a man-to-man talk. I hid my phone in my pocket, recording every word. I asked him questions, probing, pushing his buttons. And he slipped. "You think anyone would believe your sister?" he sneered. "You think anyone would listen to her over me? She's mine. She always has been. And soon, everyone will think you're the monster instead of me." I froze. My chest burned with rage, but I kept my face calm. Let him ramble. Let the recorder capture every word. When I finally walked away, I felt like I was holding a live grenade in my pocket. I had proof now. Real proof. Enough to burn him down. But proof wasn't safety. If he even suspected I had it, he would destroy me before I could use it. And that night, as I lay in bed, I realized something chilling. my father already suspected, because when I closed my eyes, I remembered his last words, hissed into my ear before he walked away, "You'll regret crossing me. Blood doesn't save traitors." The following days were torture. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. Every time someone knocked on the door, I flinched, convinced it was my father coming to end me. I carried my phone everywhere, clutching it like a lifeline, replaying his words over and over to make sure I wasn't imagining it. "You'll regret crossing me. Blood doesn't save traitors." The recording was crystal clear. His voice, his tone, his arrogance, it was undeniable. And yet, the weight of it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a death sentence. I tried to confide in Claire again. I met her at a cafe away from the neighborhood, far enough where no one would recognize us. She looked fragile, her belly showing now, the secret impossible to hide much longer. "I have proof," I whispered, sliding the phone across the table. "Listen." She did. Her face went pale, her lips parting as she heard our father's voice, his vile words, his admission. She looked at me with wide, horrified eyes. "Delete it," she begged immediately. "Please, delete it before he finds out." "Claire, no. This is our way out. This is how we stop him. We can go to the police with this, you and me." She shook her head violently, tears running down her cheeks. "You don't get it. He'll kill us. He'll kill me and the baby. He told me once, if I ever betray him, he'll make sure I never live to see tomorrow. He has friends, money, power. We'd disappear, and no one would ask questions." I slammed my fist against the table, making her jump. "So what, Claire? We just let him win. We let him destroy both our lives forever." Her silence was answer enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the weight of everything crushing my chest. Proof or not, I was cornered. My parents still believed I was the father. My father still had his claws in Claire. And Claire herself was too broken, too terrified to fight back. I thought about running away, packing a bag, leaving town, cutting ties with all of them. But then I imagined the headlines, the gossip, "Son flees after impregnating sister." My silence would seal their narrative. No, I couldn't run. The next morning, I took the risk. I emailed the recording to myself, then to a burner account I created. I uploaded it to a cloud drive, hidden under layers of fake folders. If something happened to me, I wanted this proof to survive. And then, like an idiot, I made a mistake. I confronted him again. It wasn't planned. I caught him in the kitchen, pouring himself coffee like nothing in the world was wrong. Like he wasn't a predator hiding behind the mask of father. Something inside me snapped. "You disgust me," I spat. "You're a monster. And one day, everyone will know what you've done." He didn't even flinch. He sipped his coffee, looked me dead in the eyes, and smirked. "You think you're clever," he said softly. "You think hiding behind that little phone makes you safe. Let me tell you something, son. You are nothing without me. You are a parasite living under my roof, eating my food. If I want to erase you, I can. And no one will question it." My hands shook, but I didn't back down. "I have proof. And if anything happens to me, people will see it. They'll know what you are." For the first time, his smile faltered, just for a second, but then it returned, darker than before. "You think you're holding the leash," he whispered, leaning close enough that I could smell the bitterness of his coffee on his breath. "But you're the dog. And I decide when it's time to put the dog down." He walked away, leaving me trembling, my fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. That night, the war began. It started with little things, my car tires slashed, my boss at work suddenly calling me in to ask about rumors of incest in my family. My father was poisoning the air around me, making sure I was isolated, stripped of allies. Then it got worse. Anonymous messages on my phone. "We know what you're trying to do. Stop, or you'll regret it." One evening, I came home to find my room trashed, my mattress cut open, my drawers overturned, my notebook gone. The one where I wrote everything. He knew. I was shaking so hard I dropped to my knees. He was sending me a message. "I own you." I called Claire, panicked, begging her to leave the apartment, to go somewhere safe. She answered in a whisper, her voice broken. "It's too late. He was here. He told me if you don't stop, he'll hurt the baby." The rage that exploded inside me was like nothing I'd ever felt. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to burn everything he touched. But all I had was the recording, the one fragile thread holding me together. And then, 2 days later, I woke up to an email from an unknown sender. No subject, no text, just a single attachment. It was my own recording, the one I thought was safe. Only it had been edited, twisted. In the file, it sounded like I was the one confessing, like I was the one admitting to fathering Claire's baby. The world spun around me as I listened. My father wasn't just fighting me. He was rewriting reality. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. He didn't need to kill me. He just needed to destroy me until I begged for death. The morning after I received that email, I sat on my bed staring at my phone for hours, unable to move. The edited recording kept playing in my head, my own voice twisted into something foul, something damning. I could already imagine how it would spread, through my family, through my neighborhood, through the entire community. I would be branded forever, not just as the suspicious brother, but as a predator, a criminal. My father had turned my own weapon against me, and now he held all the power. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall, but what would that change? The file wasn't just on my phone, it was out there now, circulating in his hands, ready to be used, whenever he pleased. My entire life was dangling on a thread he controlled. That night, I decided to take a risk that could either save me, or destroy me completely. I went to see Claire again. She looked worse than ever, hollow-eyed, her skin pale, her hands trembling as she poured me a glass of water. She didn't even try to hide her fear anymore. "Claire," I said softly, "he's turning this on me. He edited the recording, made it sound like I confessed. If he releases it, I'm finished. And your silence makes me look guilty. I can't fight this alone. I need you to stand with me, please." She stared at me for a long time, tears welling in her eyes. Her lips trembled. "I can't," she whispered finally. "You don't understand what he's capable of." I slammed my fist on the table, startling her. "I do understand. Don't you get it? He's already won. He'll keep destroying me, and he'll keep destroying you until there's nothing left of us. The only way out is the truth, the real truth." She shook her head, sobbing. "If I speak, he'll kill me. He'll kill the baby. I can't take that risk." Her words crushed me. She was my sister, the only other person who knew the truth, and yet she was so broken by his control that she couldn't move, couldn't fight. He had destroyed her long before the baby, long before me. I left her apartment that night with a heaviness in my chest I can't even describe. I walked the empty streets for hours, my mind racing, the city lights blurring into streaks as tears burned my eyes. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. If Claire couldn't fight, then I would fight for her, even if it meant sacrificing myself. The next morning, I went straight to the police station. I walked in with shaking hands, my phone in my pocket, the unedited recording queued up. When the officer asked what I wanted to report, I opened my mouth and felt my throat close, like the words were physically choking me. But then I forced them out. "My father is abusing my sister, and she's pregnant with his child." The officer's eyebrows shot up, skepticism flashing across his face. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" My hands trembled as I slid the phone across the desk. "Listen." He pressed play. My father's voice filled the room, every vile word echoing off the walls. The officer's face changed as he listened, shock, then discomfort, then something that looked almost like fear. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. This is going to cause a storm." "I don't care," I said, my voice breaking. "I just want it to stop." What happened next blurred into chaos. They took my statement, asked for every detail, every piece of evidence I had. I gave them the photos, the receipts, everything I'd collected. They promised to look into it, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. They knew how powerful my father was, how respected. This wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't. Within 24 hours, my phone exploded with calls and messages. My mother screaming at me for betraying the family. My father's lawyer threatening me with defamation charges. Neighbors whispering, colleagues avoiding me, people looking at me like I was poison. And Claire, she stopped answering my calls altogether. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing happened. No arrest, no trial, just silence. My father walked around as if nothing had changed, still smiling, still shaking hands at church, still pretending to be the perfect family man. Until one evening, I came home to find a note slipped under my door. No name, no signature, just a single sentence written in sharp black ink. "The baby is due soon, and if you don't shut your mouth, you won't live to see it." I crumpled to the floor, clutching the note in my hands, my body shaking with rage and despair. I don't know what's going to happen now. Maybe the police are working quietly. Maybe they're just ignoring me. Maybe my father is too powerful to ever fall. Maybe Claire will never break free. All I know is that I can't sleep, can't eat, can't live without the fear pressing down on me. And every time I hear a knock at the door, I wonder if it's the police finally coming with justice, or my father, coming to finish me. I don't know what to do anymore. Follow me for more stories.